When we ask the question, what if Donald Trump won every future election forever? We are not just speculating about politics, but imagining a complete restructuring of society, government, and even the world order. To understand the consequences, we first need to set the stage. What does it actually mean for one man to remain in power indefinitely? In the United States, the Constitution clearly limits a president to 2 terms. But in our scenario, these rules no longer matter. Somehow, Trump is re-elected every single time without fail. Maybe the Constitution has been rewritten. Maybe elections become a formality. Or maybe, in this what-if world, Trump simply can't lose. No matter what happens, the outcome is always the same. This vision begins in the year 2024. Against all odds, Trump returns to the White House for a second time. But unlike before, this is not just another 4-year cycle. Instead, it marks the beginning of something far more permanent, the start of the forever presidency. At first, Americans are divided, as they always are. Supporters celebrate the return of a leader they believe speaks for them, while critics brace themselves for more chaos. But what nobody knows yet is that this moment is only the beginning. From now on, Trump will not only win in 2028, 2032, and 2036, he will continue to win for the rest of time. Pushpin: the breaking of tradition. The first impact of Trump's endless victories is the collapse of American political tradition. For over 2 centuries, the United States has been defined by the peaceful transfer of power. George Washington, the first president, stepped down after 2 terms to set an example. No one man should ever become king. Every president after him followed that principle until now. With Trump's victories stretching endlessly into the future, the idea of presidential rotation vanishes. The Republican Party, once a massive political machine with hundreds of ambitious figures, transforms into something else. Entirely, the Trump Party. Why compete with him when he always wins? Why challenge him when every election is predetermined? Slowly, every voice inside the party bends toward loyalty. The Democratic Party, on the other hand, faces an existential crisis. After losing again and again, its base begins to shrink. Many Americans lose faith in the electoral system. Some stop voting altogether, believing the outcome is already decided. Others leave the country, searching for a place where democracy still feels real. The political divide in America doesn't just grow. It mutates into something darker. Pushpin: the cult of personality. Over time, Trump's eternal presidency creates something the U.S. has never seen before: a true cult of personality. His face is not just on campaign posters, but on murals, billboards, and even children's school books. In a country where presidents used to fade into history after their terms, Trump never fades at all. He becomes the permanent figure of authority, the man who is always on television, always giving speeches, always shaping the national mood. News channels begin to revolve around him completely. Fox News turns into a permanent praise machine, while other networks, exhausted from decades of opposition, collapse under pressure. Independent media struggles to survive. Gradually, the line between political reporting and propaganda blurs. In schools, students grow up knowing only one president. For them, history is simple: America before Trump and America under Trump. To a generation of children, there is no memory of Obama, Bush, or even Washington. There is only one leader, one image, one voice. The economy under endless Trump. Now let us consider the economy. In Trump's forever presidency, America goes through cycles of prosperity and decline, but one thing remains constant. The economy is always tied to Trump's image. Every rise in the stock market is declared a triumph of his leadership. Every fall is blamed on outside forces: immigrants, foreign nations, or his political enemies. Supporters feel protected. They believe Trump alone can guard their jobs, their homes, and their way of life. Critics, however, feel trapped. No matter how bad things get, no matter what mistakes are made, there is no way to replace him. For them, the economy becomes a prison, locked to the success or failure of one man's policies. Foreign investors, too, adjust to this strange reality. After decades, they realize they will never have to guess who the U.S. president will be. Trade agreements, tariffs, and sanctions all bear the permanent Trump signature. Some countries adapt willingly, striking long-term deals with America. Others grow hostile, seeing the U.S. as a one-man empire rather than a democracy. Pushpin global reaction. Perhaps the most fascinating consequence of Trump's eternal rule is how the rest of the world reacts. Some nations celebrate. Leaders who value strength and nationalism, in Russia, North Korea, or parts of the Middle East, find in Trump a kindred spirit. They admire his defiance of tradition, his rejection of political correctness, and his ability to dominate his country. But for others, especially in Europe, the endless Trump presidency becomes a nightmare. How do you negotiate with a man who never leaves office? How do you plan for the future when America is frozen under one leader? Allies that once relied on America's stability begin to distance themselves. The NATO alliance weakens. Trade partnerships shift. China seizes the opportunity to expand its influence, offering itself as an alternative world leader to those tired of Trump's dominance. Society in transformation. Inside America, society changes in subtle but powerful ways. Over time, laws are rewritten. Institutions that once balanced presidential power, Congress, the Supreme Court, federal agencies, bend toward Trump's will. Judges are appointed for life, always loyal to him. Senators and governors learn that their political survival depends not on serving their people, but on proving their loyalty to the president. Citizens, too, adapt. Supporters wear Trump-branded clothing as symbols of identity, not just politics. Businesses print his slogans on everything from cereal boxes to credit cards. Dissenters grow quieter, knowing that their voices carry less weight in a country where opposition never wins. Gradually, the line between America and monarchy begins to blur. Trump may not wear a crown, but in practice, he rules like a king, eternal, unchanging, unavoidable. Pushpin, the first generational shift. By 2044, something remarkable happens. An entire generation of Americans comes of age having known only Trump as president. For them, the idea of another leader is almost unthinkable. Some accept it as normal. Others rebel against it, demanding change that never comes. This is the moment when Trump's forever presidency moves from being a strange political situation into a true historical era. Just as people once spoke of the Victorian Age or the Soviet era, humanity now speaks of the Trump age. Pushpin, the military under Trump forever. For decades, American presidents have come and gone, but the U.S. military has remained a constant force. Under Trump's endless rule, that relationship changes. The armed forces are no longer preparing for leadership shifts, new doctrines, or different worldviews. Instead, they evolve into a machine perfectly tuned to one commander-in-chief. Generals who thrive under Trump's style rise quickly through the ranks. Those who resist his vision quietly retire or are forced out. Military academies begin teaching not just American military history, but the philosophy of Trump's leadership. His slogans, once rallying cries at rallies, become part of officer training. The effect is profound. The U.S. military becomes a personal extension of Trump himself. Decisions are centralized, and global deployments are shaped less by long-term strategy and more by his personal instincts. Some conflicts are avoided through sheer unpredictability. Foreign leaders, never sure what Trump might do next, hesitate to provoke him. But other conflicts ignite precisely because of that unpredictability. In this world, allies are unsure whether America will defend them, and enemies are unsure whether America will strike. The balance of power turns into a constant gamble, with the world's most powerful military acting as the personal guard of one man. Pushpin technology and the digital empire. Meanwhile, technology takes a strange turn. In a world where Trump always wins, the digital landscape bends around him. Social media, once a chaotic mix of voices, increasingly becomes dominated by his presence. Platforms know that their survival depends on him, and so they shape algorithms to favor Trump-friendly content. Over time, Trump is not just a political leader but the centerpiece of digital culture. Memes, videos, live streams, and even artificial intelligence programs carry his image. Children who grow up in this era cannot escape him. He is on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and every future platform that emerges. The merging of politics and entertainment, already strong in Trump's early years, becomes absolute. Politics is no longer about laws or policy. It is about the spectacle of Trump himself. Every debate, every controversy, every speech is designed for maximum virality. And since he never leaves office, there is never a break in the cycle. Technology also evolves to preserve him. AI is trained on his speeches to keep his voice alive indefinitely. Holograms broadcast him into rallies across the country. Even when his physical body begins to age, the digital Trump remains forever young, a virtual avatar capable of speaking to millions at once. This leads to a strange reality. Trump does not just rule America. He rules the digital universe as well. Culture and society. Culture under Trump forever is unlike anything America has experienced. At first, his presence is polarizing. Half the nation adores him, half despises him. But as years turn into decades, something shifts. Opposition grows weaker, unable to produce lasting victories. Artists, musicians, and filmmakers who once mocked him slowly give up. After all, satire loses its power when the target never falls. Instead, new cultural movements arise. Music glorifies him. Films dramatize his speeches. Literature builds myths around his persona. For some, Trump becomes a folk hero larger than life, almost mythical. For others, he becomes a shadow they cannot escape, a constant presence that shapes their identity even in rebellion. Immigrants, minorities, and marginalized groups face unique challenges. In a forever Trump America, immigration laws are stricter, and national identity is closely tied to his image. Some communities thrive by aligning themselves with his vision, while others feel excluded, trapped in a country that never changes leadership. Generational divides grow sharper. Young people who want change find themselves powerless, while older generations see Trump as the stable anchor of their world. Family dinner tables become battlegrounds of ideology, not between political parties, but between those who embrace the Trump era and those who dream of its end. Pushpin democracy redefined. Perhaps the greatest transformation lies in the meaning of democracy itself. For centuries, democracy has meant the ability to choose new leaders. But in Trump's America, elections still happen, only the results never change. To his supporters, this feels like democracy in action. After all, the people keep voting, and Trump keeps winning. To his critics, it feels like the death of democracy, a system that has become an illusion, a ritual without real choice. Over time, even the language changes. Election day becomes less about deciding the future and more about celebrating Trump's victory. Ballots are cast, votes are counted, but the outcome is always certain. Children grow up not understanding why elections used to matter, because in their experience they never have. Some dissenters try to resist. Movements rise demanding term limits, constitutional reform, or even revolution. But each time the government suppresses them. With the military loyal, the media controlled, and the population divided, resistance never succeeds. Thus, democracy does not disappear, it mutates. It becomes a ritual designed not to replace leaders, but to reaffirm one leader again and again. Pushpin the global balance of power. On the world stage, Trump's forever presidency throws everything into chaos. Countries that once relied on American leadership no longer trust it. Presidents, prime ministers, and kings who once expected to negotiate with a variety of U.S. leaders now face the same man year after year. Some adapt. They flatter him, learn his style, and use it to their advantage. Others reject him outright, seeking alliances with nations like China or Russia instead. Over time, the world fractures into two camps. Those aligned with Trump's America, and those opposed to it. The United Nations struggles to function. International treaties become fragile. Climate change agreements collapse, replaced by individual deals made directly with Trump himself. The world becomes less about global cooperation and more about personal relationships with the eternal American president. The rise of Trumpism as a global ideology. Perhaps the strangest development is the export of Trumpism itself. Across the world, leaders see his endless rule as a model to copy. In countries from Brazil to Turkey, from Eastern Europe to parts of Africa, politicians begin adopting his style. rejecting term limits, rewriting constitutions, and turning democracies into one-man shows. In this way, Trump is no longer just an American phenomenon. He becomes a global template for power. The world enters a new age, not the American century, but the Trump century. Pushpin the seeds of resistance. But every empire creates its resistance. In underground networks, in universities, and in hidden corners of the internet, voices whisper of change. Young Americans dream of a future where elections are real again. Activists document abuses, create art that challenges the system, and spread ideas of freedom. Though small and scattered, these seeds of resistance keep hope alive. Because history shows one truth: no rule lasts forever, no matter how permanent it seems. By the mid-21st century, Donald Trump has already outlived every president in American history in terms of time and power. In a normal democracy, presidents serve 4 or 8 years. In dictatorships, some leaders stretch to decades. But Trump's victories are not bound by biology, chance, or politics. He continues to win again and again. At first, this seems impossible. Human beings age. No one can rule forever. But technology begins to fill the gap, transforming Trump from a mere politician into something more. A permanent figure who transcends time. Pushpin the rise of the digital president. In the 2050s, Trump is no longer as physically energetic as he once was. Decades of rallies, speeches, and conflict have taken their toll. Yet the people still want him, and the system still delivers his victory every election. The solution comes from technology. Artificial intelligence, once designed to mimic human voices, becomes capable of replicating entire personalities. Engineers train massive language models on Trump's speeches, interviews, and writings. The result is a digital Trump who can speak endlessly, never tiring, never faltering. At first, this AI Trump is just a supplement, reading speeches, hosting virtual rallies, and interacting with citizens online. But soon, it evolves into something more. Through holograms and augmented reality, Trump appears in multiple places at once. Millions attend his rallies without ever leaving their homes. Children grow up hearing him as a constant voice on their personal devices. The digital Trump is smoother, faster, and more precise than the original. He never forgets a name, never loses his voice, and can adapt instantly to changing circumstances. For many Americans, this AI version becomes more real than the man himself. Pushpin biological limitations. Of course, the real Trump still exists. By the 2060s and 2070s, he is a very old man. But medicine, too, advances. Age reversal treatments, organ regeneration, and neural implants extend his lifespan far beyond what was once possible. Billionaires around the world seek immortality, but Trump is the only one who has the full machinery of a superpower supporting him. With limitless elections guaranteed, resources pour into keeping him alive. Laboratories push boundaries once thought impossible. Trump becomes the first man in history not just to win endless elections, but to experience something close to endless life. Even when his physical body begins to fail, the digital Trump ensures continuity. Americans cannot tell where the man ends and the machine begins. Is the voice they hear still human, or is it just a perfect simulation? Does it matter? For them, Trump is still president. Pushpin the American empire. With Trump in power for half a century, America transforms into something no longer resembling its founding principles. The separation of powers collapses completely. Congress still exists, but it is ceremonial, a stage where politicians praise Trump rather than legislate. The Supreme Court rules only in ways that align with his will. America ceases to be a republic and becomes something closer to an empire. Not an empire of conquest, but of influence and permanence. The world comes to see the U.S. not as a land of democracy. They speak of negotiating with Trump, the eternal figure who has ruled through their fathers, their grandfathers, and now their own lives. Some nations resist. China, rising as a rival, frames itself as the alternative to Trump's America. A civilization not bound to one man. Europe, fractured, sometimes follows and sometimes rebels. But in many parts of the world, Trump's permanence becomes attractive. Leaders tired of elections, protests, and instability see in him a model to copy. Across the globe, Trumpism becomes not just an American system, but a global ideology. The belief that one strong leader is better than the chaos of democracy. Pushpin culture in the Trump age. After decades of Trump victories, American culture reshapes entirely. Museums dedicate entire wings to his presidency. Universities offer courses in Trump studies, analyzing his speeches and policies like sacred texts. Holidays emerge. Trump Day, celebrated with rallies, fireworks, and merchandise. The entertainment industry bends toward his image. Movies and shows incorporate Trump characters, sometimes heroic, sometimes parodic, but always unavoidable. Music celebrates his era. Even fashion reflects him. Red hats remain symbols of loyalty for over a century, evolving from a campaign accessory into a cultural uniform. Dissent does not vanish entirely. Underground art forms, hidden communities, and secret literature critique him. But such voices remain marginal, whispered rather than shouted. For most Americans, Trump is not just the president. He is the air they breathe, the background of their lives, the forgotten past. By the late 21st century, generations of Americans have lived and died under Trump's rule. Children in schools no longer learn much about past presidents. Figures like Lincoln, Roosevelt, and Kennedy fade from memory. History textbooks focus primarily on Trump's achievements, his leadership style, and the Trump era that defines everything. For these children, the idea of another leader is almost incomprehensible. They cannot imagine a world where an election results in anyone else's victory. Their grandparents may tell stories of Barack Obama or George Bush, but to them it sounds like ancient history, as distant as kings and queens from the Middle Ages. Democracy, once the cornerstone of American identity, becomes a legend. People speak of it like a fairy tale, a strange experiment from long ago that failed, replaced by something stronger and more enduring, Trump's eternal rule. Pushpin resistance in the shadows. Yet even in this eternal age, resistance lingers. Some young Americans refuse to accept a world without change. They meet in secret, study old texts about democracy, and dream of a future where elections are real again. Underground networks preserve documents from the pre-Trump era, storing them in hidden archives and encrypted digital vaults. These rebels are few in number, and the state often suppresses them. But their existence proves that even in an age of permanence, the human spirit still longs for freedom. Pushpin the question of identity. Perhaps the deepest impact of Trump's eternal victories is not political or economic, but psychological. What does it mean to be an American when your entire national identity is tied to one man? When every institution, every holiday, every aspect of life revolves around a single leader. Some embrace it fully, seeing Trump as a symbol of stability, strength, and national pride. Others feel suffocated, as if their individuality has been swallowed by the endless repetition of his rule. The country itself begins to split, not into states or political parties but into two psychological camps. Those who see Trump as America, and those who see Trump as its end. Pushpin the march toward immortality. As the century advances, the boundaries between man and machine blur further. Trump's physical body, frail with age, becomes less relevant. His digital persona, powered by AI and sustained by vast servers, grows stronger. People interact with him daily, not just in speeches, but in personal conversations with their own Trump AI assistants. For many Americans, this is no longer politics. It is life itself. The president is always present, always listening, always responding. By now, it is no longer a question of Trump winning elections forever. It is a question of Trump existing forever. The biological man may one day end, but the Trump persona, digital, eternal, immortal, will never leave.